Yeah, dude. You said this a couple weeks ago. You said this maybe 2 weeks ago, or maybe a week ago. Last week, you might have said it just doesn't feel like there's a crazy amount of hype. But then you get to fight week, and then all of a sudden, everybody is talking about it. I mean, people that aren't even into MMA. Here at Gas Digital today, there was having a conversation, like just people in the, like, all right, where are you watching the fights this weekend? Everyone's making plans for it. So it really did just sort of catch on this week, and it does seem to be picking up a little bit of traction. Yeah, I'm very excited. I'm going to be in Philly this weekend, so I got to watch it at a bar somewhere. But you're going to actually be there in Vegas live, right?
Yeah, I'll be there. I'll get there Wednesday night. I'm doing some stuff for ESPN on Sports Center and stuff on the Thursday. Friday, obviously, weigh-ins for Saturday, pre-fight show, post-fight show. So, yeah, it's nice to be a part of it. I'll be there. And, of course, as you say, today is the day all the embeddeds will start coming out. There'll probably be one tonight. Oh, I don't know if that starts tomorrow. But anyway, the embeddeds will come out soon. There's a countdown show out already. I haven't seen that yet. But apparently, it was a very, very good one. Dana's out there hyping the fight up as well. In fact, this time he said that the doctors at the Performance Institute say that Conor is in the best shape of his life. Which, you hear that type of stuff all the time. Dylan Dennis has come out and he said, Conor's always prepared, man. Conor's been one of the best jiu-jitsu guys that I've ever rolled with, like MMA-wise, since I started training with him. His jiu-jitsu is on another level, and it always has been. I think people just underestimate him for some reason. Listen, that's what coaches are supposed to do. John Kavanagh, I think we talked about this last week. John Kavanagh came out and said, listen, Conor knows more about fighting than all of us put together, which he probably does. He does it at a very, very high level. I don't know if John Kavanagh ever fought professionally once, Now, you don't necessarily need to fight to know about it, but you do have to fight to truly understand the emotions of a fighter because you've never been through those emotions, so you can't understand it. So all these coaches are saying the right thing. And, of course, with Conor, when you look at it on paper, he gets tired as the fight progresses. In the first round, he's an absolute killer. So I think that's what people are trying to do there. And of course, Conor's also out there. What did he say? He said something about trying to get Cerrone to keep the fight on the feet. What point is that?
Hold on, he said it right.
0.5.
He said, I guess he's going to try to goad him into a pure stand-up battle. There's a video of that, right? You want to pull that up really quick? Here we go.
It's just a photo from his Instagram.
Oh, it's just a photo. Okay. So what was the actual quote? Do you have it?
First one to shoot's a cow bitch.
Okay, first one to shoot's a cow bitch. Which, look, Conor might shoot. Fuck it, right? I'd be impressed.
Conor won't shoot.
He won't.
Conor is not going to shoot. Conor's not going to shoot. I mean, I quote Nate Diaz. Oh, so now you're a wrestler, man. You do it. You do it better, Diaz.
Yeah, so you're a wrestler. I don't do a great Diaz, but once in a while when I'm inspired.
That's good. Now you're a wrestler, man.
Yeah, I see you wrestling.
Oh, now you're a wrestler? No, so here's the thing. A lot of fighters, a lot of European fighters specifically, they talk shit about people wrestling. But unfortunately, this is mixed martial arts. Now, Cowboy did say that he ain't gonna look for an easy path to victory. He wants to go out there. He wants to knock him out. Maybe he's just, try to lull him into a false sense of security. For Cowboy to win this fight, he has to wrestle in the first round, because he's got to get out that first round. And the best way to do that is to clinch, to shoot, to push Conor up against the fence, to try and get him down. If you can get him down on the floor, given the fact that this fight is at 117, he's going to be the bigger, heavier man, then he's got a good chance of stifling Conor, frustrating Conor, wearing Conor out a little bit. Cowboy's always been a slow starter. McGregor's a fast starter. So it'd be a good idea for Cerrone to wrestle in the first round, and then look for the strikes as it goes on. Hey, listen, if you're having success down there, take him down again and look for a submission. But I don't see Cowboy getting a first round finish. I see McGregor getting a first round finish, if I'm honest.
Yeah. If one of them's going to finish it early, it's McGregor. I mean, the reality is this, like, I think the best Conor beats the best Cowboy, right? And I don't know, and I don't think anybody really knows what Conor is going to show up. And if it's going to be, like, if it's a really inspired Conor McGregor, the rising star that we saw come up, and the way he just had, it was like lightning in a bottle. There was something about it. It wasn't even just the fact that he could talk shit or he had exciting fights. It was sort of the intensity that he brought to both of those things. There's an intensity to Conor McGregor, whether you love him or hate him, that it's like, goddamn, you sort of want to watch him go, right? Whether it's talk or fight or whatever it is.
Yes, correct. But can you bring up that? Well, no, in fact, don't bring it up because it's too long. But he did a sit-down interview with Ariel Helwani. There was some little clips surfacing on social media at the weekend, and there's some other bits coming up today. And he's talking about the fight, and he's much calmer, and people are saying, oh, he seems focused and all the rest of it. What you got to remember, his last few fights, I mean, we had Mayweather and we had Khabib. I mean, when he came out against Khabib, and even Eddie Alvarez at 205, he was coming out there, he was talking a lot of shit. Remember, McGregor always disrespects his opponents. He's not doing that with Cerrone. He's being complimentary. He's being nice. He did say one line, which I don't buy, because Ariel said, why take this fight at 155? Sorry, pardon me. Why take this fight at 170? And he said, oh, because Cerrone, when you see him at 155, he looks ill. He looks ill. And I want to have the best Cerrone possible. Which, come on, listen. It's a nice soundbite. It's a good thing to say, but that ain't true. There's no one on this earth says, I want to take this fight at the optimal weight class of my opponent.
Yeah.
Now, he did say, I can beat Cerrone with the flu. He said, I'll beat him anyway. I'll beat him with the flu. Now, that might be true. And only time will tell. But Cerrone should be an underdog for a good reason. Go ahead.
I was going to say people are sort of talking about the fact that Conor McGregor lost his last few fights, but don't forget that Donald Cerrone also lost his last few fights. And if you really look at it, and there's no disrespect to Donald Cerrone at all, because they're both killers, but it was against Justin Gaethje and Tony Ferguson. He was stopped in both of those fights where, Conor McGregor, he did lose to Khabib and he lost to Mayweather, but it's like two of the absolute best in their respective sports. I just feel like, to be honest with you, Gaethje and Tony are so good that it's like there's nothing embarrassing about losing to either one of those guys. But the fact that he was stopped with strikes in both of those fights is sort of telling. And you look at that and you go like, well, that's what Conor's going to do. He's going to go there and he's going to really bring it to him, and he's going to strike with him. So, it's a little something it's making me a little less confident in Donald Cerrone's chances in this fight.
You are correct. And that's what everybody's, that's what everyone's leaning towards. And it makes sense, right? He lost his last two fights. He got knocked out. Well, sorry, no, pardon me. It was a stoppage. It was a TKO against Justin Gaethje. Got caught with a big crushing blow, went down, ate a couple more. Justin Gaethje didn't want to carry on. He was looking at the referee, but he was forced to hit him a couple more times. Prior to that, he fought Tony Ferguson. Now, Tony Ferguson, again, one of the very best on a crazy win streak. And that was a doctor stoppage. Remember, it went 2 rounds. The first round was pretty close. The first round, if I remember rightly, because I watched it at the arena and I haven't seen it since. If I remember rightly, I think Cerrone might have just edged that first round. Second round, Ferguson put him under a lot of pressure. And then if you remember, Cerrone blew his nose when they say you shouldn't do, and it all kind of fucking blew up, remember? And the doctor stepped in. Now, you're right. He lost those 2 fights. But prior to that, look at those 3 wins. Al Iaquinta, right? I love Al Iaquinta. He's a hell of a fighter. He's a tremendous fighter. He can wrestle. He can box. He's got a fucking chin. He hits hard. And Cerrone, and as much as I love Iaquinta, he just beat him that night. Fair and square. He was the better man in every facet. He made a mess of Iaquinta's face. He busted him up. And I'm sure Al would admit that. It was a bad night at the office. It was a good night for Cerrone. So that was a fantastic win at 155. Prior to that fight, and this is a guy that I see with some similarities to McGregor, Alexander Hernandez. Alexander Hernandez at that time, if I'm not mistaken, was undefeated. He was coming in there. He talked a lot of shit about Donald Cerrone. Oh, no, he had 1 loss on his record. He was 10-1 going into this fight. And he 2 wins in the UFC, knocked out Beneil Dariush. I'm talking about Alexander Hernandez. Then he beat Olivier Aubin-Mercier. Then he fought Donald Cerrone. And he lost. He got knocked out against Donald Cerrone in the second round. And I thought it was going to end badly for Cerrone in that fight. Hernandez coming in pretty much undefeated, very, very powerful, excellent striking. He switches stances. A lot of time he'll stand as a southpaw, then he'll stand orthodox, head kicks, unorthodox movement. He was a good wrestler as well. And as I say, Cerrone just took over, started beating him to the punch, and then dropped him with a head kick and followed it up. Prior to that one, he beat Mike Perry via submission. Now, of course, before that, it was a loss to Leon Edwards. Before that, he beat Yancy Medeiros. Prior to that, it was in a 3-fight losing streak at welterweight. Darren Till, Robbie Lawler, Masvidal. No shame in any of them. But the point is, yeah, he lost his last two, but before that, a 3-fight win streak. This is back at 170. I honestly believe that this is a much closer fight than everybody is making it out to be. And I'll tell you, if you want to take a punt, just a wild punt, listen, the safe money is going to be on McGregor, right? If you want to make some money and you want to bet on McGregor and play it safe, you're going to have to put a lot of money down to get any kind of return. But if you want to just if you've got $20 that you want to spare, 50, whatever it is, right? Put it on fucking Cerrone because he's the underdog right now. And I'm telling you, he could fucking win this fight.
He could definitely win this fight. And, we will see who shows up. We will see if McGregor is motivated and he really wants it. I think McGregor could beat almost anybody at 155 pounds or 170 pounds, any given Sunday. Khabib, I think he's never going to beat him. I think if they fought 100 times, I think Khabib just has his number, but almost anybody, so it's a big question mark. And if Conor McGregor comes out and he looks like a beast and he comes out and he stops him in the first, it's like he'll go on another run and that'll be it. That's all it will take for the fans are so fair weather that he knocks out Donald Cerrone in the first round. Conor is back, and it'll be a huge coming out party for this sort of next wave of his career. But I have no idea. It's such a question. I would never bet on this fight in a million years. It'd be so hard to pick who's going to win this fight because it seems like Conor probably on paper should be able to win this fight. But there's all of these X factors that you just don't know. I have no idea what's going on in Conor's head. I have no idea if he's being a bazillionaire and having his own all these companies and being partners, but then also the legal troubles and all the other bullshit he's dealing with. How much is that weighing on him? How much is that fucking with his head? He's been in and out of court. There's all of these X factors. I wouldn't touch this fight if I had to.
Well, that's why, if you remember, I said if you've got 20, 30, 50, $100 left hanging around that you just want to, who knows, maybe you've got big pockets. If you want to throw 1,000 on it, be my fucking guest. My point is, if you've got some money that you don't mind losing, put it on Cerrone because it'll be fun. Now, you just mentioned what kind of McGregor are we going to see? I honestly believe that what Dana's saying is correct, what John Kavanagh's coach is, everyone around him, they're saying, listen, this is a different McGregor this time. And I believe it because it has to be. It has to be. McGregor's he's in a tight spot right now. And he has a lot riding on this. You just mentioned all the businesses that he's a part of. These are all fabricated through his presence as a fighter, his presence as he's such an icon these days, and it's all through fighting. Right now, the myth has been dispelled a little bit. He lost to Mayweather. He lost to Khabib. He's supposed to beat Donald Cerrone, right? He's supposed to beat him. I'm not saying that it's an easy fight. I'm not saying the UFC have given him a gimme, but this is a fight that the masses, the bookies, he's a favorite for a reason. A lot of people are expecting McGregor to win this fight, but it's not a walk in the park. It never is. So he's under a lot of pressure. So that might change things. But when you saw him, for example, talking about Cerrone to Khabib, Khabib, to Ariel, he was nice and calm. He was nice and calm. And I'm telling you, when you're calmer, you fight better, you perform better. When you don't let your emotions take over you, you perform better. But he has to win. If he goes out there and gets his ass kicked here, I'm not saying it's over because it's not, but it's a massive, massive blow to himself, to his fight career, to his legacy. So many different ways you can slice it. So
what
it's
do you
high
do
pressure
with
situation.
A loss? I mean, it's like, where do you go there for Conor? There's almost like, if you're not winning fights, and then it's like a fight you're supposed to win, and it sounds like it's disrespectful to Cowboy, but it's a fight that you're supposed to win. They set this fight up for Conor to win this fight. Okay,
Yep.
they let him handpick his opponents. He knew that this was a winnable fight for him. Because the reality is, if he wanted to come in, he could have probably fought Khabib. He could have put his foot down and said, I'm fighting Khabib. I don't give a fuck. And I think that they probably would have bent. I think they would have let him do it. He's just too big of a draw, too massive of a celebrity. But if he does not win this fight, I have no idea what to do with Conor McGregor if I'm the UFC, because it's like, it's really, there's not a ton of value there.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a tough one if he loses this fight. Listen, it's not over. He's still wildly famous. He's still got a name, and he can still turn it around, you know. But I mean, if you look at Cerrone, out of his last 12 fights, he's won 6 and he's lost 6. You know what I mean? So he's a 50-50 fighter right now, albeit against some very good competition. I mean, the people that he's lost to are the best: Masvidal, Lawler, Till, Ferguson, Gagey, Leon Edwards. You know what I mean? So there's no run-of-the-mill people that are beating him. So when you look at it like that, can you put Conor McGregor in the company of Masvidal, Lawler, Gagey, Ferguson? Of course you can. He's that caliber of fighter. He's a prime level fighter. He's A-star level fighter. So when you look at it on paper, he should win. But if he loses, yeah, of course, it's not fucking good. It's not good for business for him. It's not good for business for the UFC, if I'm honest. I am very, very intrigued to know the pay-per-view numbers this weekend. You know, I feel it'll still be big. It's going to be big. It's always big with Conor. But if he loses, it's not over, but he's got to change some shit. So that's why I'm saying it is a high-pressure situation. And because the pressure's on, can he handle the pressure? Because he hasn't allowed himself to feel the pressure in the past. I remember when he walked in to fight Jose Aldo, he was so calm, so smooth, smiling and stuff like that. And that's the way you got to be. And he'll probably be the same. I think he will be. But the question still remains, and we'll only know on Saturday night.
I wonder, side note, I just got a little distracted there because you'd sort of mentioned the pay-per-view numbers. I've noticed that less bars are carrying the UFC now. It's harder for me to find a bar just to go get the UFC. And I think it's going to just shift. I think because they changed the way you have to do it. I don't know. I know the way it used to be was when they had to order a pay-per-view, like a bar, because I work with comedy clubs and we've talked about doing like fight nights. But through the cable company, what they have to do is they have to go and give them the like the size of the bar based off the capacity, and they pay based off of like max capacity. So it's a big risk for this bar to hold a pay-per-view unless they know it's going to be packed, and it's a lot more money than if you were to order it at home. I think with ESPN, whatever it is, that process isn't as clear to some of these bars. So it's like places like Hooters. I was on the road and the Hooters wasn't playing it, and I was like, it's fucking bizarre. So I wonder how much that shift has affected the pay-per-view numbers, and if there's going to be a little bit of an adjustment period, because I've just personally had that issue with trying to find it on the road.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can't comment too much, not simply because I'm bound by any kind of secrecy. I can't comment because I don't know, is what I was saying. I do see, to your point, on social media, I've seen the UFC on Facebook and Instagram. I've seen UFC advertising to pubs and bars saying, "Do you own a bar? Stream the McGregor Cowboy fight, yada yada yada." I would assume. Well, I've heard that it's very, very expensive because my gym, UFC Gym Costa Mesa, we streamed it at our gym, and we're a UFC gym, which is partly owned by UFC. As I say, the brand is partly owned by UFC, as you would expect. And even still, it was very expensive for us as a UFC gym to air it at our gym. So for a bar, unless it's a big bar that holds 500 people, that's 500 potential pay-per-view buys that people are going to go there for. So,
and I wonder,
it's a lot of money for them.
Well, when they go over the numbers as well, I'm assuming that if, let's say there's a bar that buys it and there's 500, they count that under, if let's say it's 1 million buys, they're counting those 500 prospective viewers in the numbers. I would assume they'd have to, right? Why wouldn't they? I would if I was the UFC.
No. I doubt it, because that would fall into viewers, not pay-per-view buys. You know, I think probably they'll have some kind of equation where for every bar, you know, depending on, they'll have different categories of bar. I'm assuming, let's say it's fucking, I don't know, what's a big bar? Let's say it's a Yard House. That's an A bar. You know what I mean? And all the way down to your little shitty dive bars, that's a C category. You know what I mean? For an A category, they'll count that as 100 buys. For a B, that's 50 buys. For a C, that's 25 buys or something. I don't fucking know. I'm purely speculating, but I'm probably not a million miles away.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe that's why they're advertising for bars as well, because I've never seen that. And maybe they're just sort of, it's about an education process. The first time I tried to buy the UFC through ESPN, I was like, I think a lot of people had some issues purchasing it the first time. So it's a little bit of a re-education process. The UFC, I think the smart thing, they realize that everything is moving over to streaming services. Everything is going to be apps. Eventually what will happen is the same way that the cable company has like HBO, Showtime, Stars, MTV, all these like, you know, things. you'll be able to, under that same Spectrum package, you'll be able to also get the ESPN app, the UFC app, the Nickelodeon app. All those other apps and services will kind of come under it as well. They just sort of haven't figured it out. It's very like splintered up right now. But we'll see. I think it's going to be a huge pay-per-view just because of the casual people walking around talking about it right now. I think it's going to be a very big pay-per-view this weekend.
No, for sure. Listen, it always is. And the UFC know that. Everybody knows that. He's the biggest star in the game. Simple as that. This is going to be an interesting one. I just Googled his name real fast and pressed news to see what will come up, to see if there's anything breaking this morning. And there isn't, nothing yet. But what I did see is kind of an interesting notion to discuss. We know that every time McGregor fights, there's an abundance of Irish supporters. Of course, there's a big Irish contingency out here in America. Whenever he fights, you see the Irish flag being displayed proudly, and rightly so. I don't know how many of them are actually traveling from Ireland and how many of them are just, Americans with Irish ancestry. But nevertheless, we do know that even that aside, a lot of people do travel from Ireland, and there's a story here. John Kavanagh denies support for McGregor from Irish fans has dwindled. No, but given all the legal troubles and some of the stuff, listen, we're human beings. We all make mistakes. Conor's made a few mistakes. I've made mistakes. We all make mistakes. Problem is for Conor, he's under a fucking microscope. Okay, I'm not making excuses for him. I'm just saying how it is. He's got some things going on that I won't bring up that could be a little more serious and definitely will affect his reputation. But there's some of the little things. I mean, like the smashing the phone. He shouldn't have done that. But you can understand it when motherfuckers are snapping pictures of you all the time. But still, it will be interesting Saturday night to see if the traveling posse of Irish people wherever he flies to are going to be there, because it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money to come from Ireland, at the start of the year, in January, just after Christmas and the New Year, to fly from Dublin or Ireland to Las Vegas, take time off work, flights, hotels, fight tickets. Do you know what I mean? That's a lot of money as well. So it's going to be interesting to feel that buzz in Vegas. I won't know until I get there to see if the tricolour is being displayed everywhere by actual people with Irish accents. You know what I mean?